Hello, everyone. I'm Deirdre Breakenridge, and welcome to Communication Makeover, a show that brings transformational breakthrough from the power of coaching. And today, you can join us as we're speaking with Wendy Braitman, who is an executive career coach and someone who knows a little bit about career reinvention. Now, we've all been stuck or feel as if we need a reinvention at some point in our life. So now it's time to take a look and to tune into Wendy.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad you stuck with us. My name is Todd Wall. I am excited to get into this conversation with Wendy because I really want to show you this concept that we're talking about with Communication Makeover. I want you to see how a real coach can really alter the change and change the course of a person's life. Join with me as we jump into this conversation with Deirdre and Wendy and watch as she not only begins to tell her story, but we begin to jump into what does it mean to reinvent. Let's take a look at it together.
Hello, Wendy. Welcome to Communication Makeover.
It's great to see you.
It's great to see you too. Now, Wendy, you're an executive career coach and you're helping professionals find success along their journeys. But I'm curious, tell me a little bit about your journey and how you became a career coach.
Well, I worked in the film industry for 20 years. I loved my work. I was a producer. I launched a media organization that helped filmmakers and financiers connect, kind of like a matchmaker of sorts. And then I was recruited for what I thought was a dream job. It was a great project for the Discovery Channel and the American Film Institute. And soon after I was in that role, they decided to relocate it across the country. I couldn't move. And I was suddenly without a job for the first time in 20 years. And I was angry. I was confused. I was probably worst of all petulant that what I thought was the peak of my career, I was having to pound the pavement once again. And I made some big mistakes along the way and really longed for guidance. I didn't know anything about coaching then and just had a really winding path to this fortuitous networking lunch where someone just randomly talked about coaching. That was the first time I heard it was a profession, and I had a true epiphany. I had an aha moment, decided to explore it, ultimately went back to school and became a coach. And now I've been coaching for years. I've coached people across all different industries and sectors and roles, and I love that I get to draw on my own really painful experience of living it. And now, having coached so many people, I really have a sense of what works.
Well, that is a fascinating story. Thank you for sharing that. It speaks to reinvention, and there is a power in coaching like none other. Now, with reinvention, Wendy, because it can be large, it can be small, it'll be different for different professionals. How would you define reinvention?
Reinvention is about changing something so it feels new. And exactly like you said, it can vary. It can be something as dramatic as my reinvention, which was really changing careers completely. It can be a pivot to a new industry. And it also can be showing up at work in a different way, where you're actually just finding a way that you can make it work. So, and I've had clients in all those situations, and it just depends on what's going to be right in the moment.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And with reinvention being so different, you did mention that as you were going through your reinvention, there are parts that can be painful. There you can be angry. What do you think stops people from reinventing? Because you might know that you need to reinvent, but you get stuck. What kind of mindset do you have to have?
Of knowing that it's possible to make a change is number one. That's the biggest. But also there's overwhelm because maybe you have no idea what to do next, or maybe you have too many ideas of what to do next. And so, how do you sort that through? And so, by the time someone comes to me, they know they need a change, but they could have been in analysis paralysis and just not knowing how to get out of their head and taking the first step.
Let's unpack that for a second because you said something interesting. By the time they come to you, they know they need a change. But do they have any direction whatsoever on how they're going to change or what they would need to do? Or is that something you draw out of them?
It really depends on the situation. The common thread is something's not right. So again, it could be as dramatic as losing your job. So then it's very clear that you need to find something new or a new job or a new direction. Or it could be that you're at work and you're just struggling and 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 want guidance. It's just that overwhelm of, again, it's that the dual play of either I have no idea, which sometimes people come to me and they really are clueless, or I have too many ideas and I don't know how to get started, or just a fear that I could even make a change and I would be successful at it.
Wendy, do they ever come to you knowing what they think they exactly want to do, and then through the process, it changes?
Yeah, well, I just was thinking of someone who was working in the television industry. She was a graphic designer for TV shows, pretty well known TV shows, but she wasn't happy. And she thought she wanted to start do oils for cooking, chili oils, hot oils. And she had an idea of the branding and the packaging, and so she was very clear on it. We started exploring it, and ended up, the more she got into it and learned what the costs were and the competition in the marketplace, she ended up not going forward with it and actually staying in her industry.
Well, thank you, Wendy. We appreciate that example.
You know, Deirdre, I love that the beginning of that conversation, and I wanted to pause there just real briefly because she's going to talk us through how to reinvent in just a minute. But I want to talk real briefly on this idea of open to possibilities. One that's a core belief of every coach is the belief that we're not up against the wall. There is a possibility for a breakthrough, but then leading that person to that place where they're open to these new ideas and this in the discovery process, that's a vital role that she laid out. What are your thoughts on that?
It is a vital role because if you think about it, if somebody isn't open to the possibility, then they're not going to trust and go down that path. And that's a part of the mindset. I think that's something that I was drawing out from Wendy in the beginning to set the stage that you have to have an open mindset. And it goes beyond just, I know something's wrong, because that's the start of it, to know something's wrong and then to have that trust in a coach to take you into the next steps.
I love it. I love it. So let's jump back in the conversation so we stay track on time. And so she's going to lead us through how to do a reinvention. Let's take a look.
Wendy, it's really interesting to hear how people can reinvent, the different types of reinvention, and the example that you shared. Now, one of the things we did talk a little bit about being stuck. Once you start to open up and you're ready for reinvention, what does that look like? What are some of the first steps that somebody can take?
Some of the steps are understanding your priorities at this moment. So, what's your most important must haves? What's your most important deal breakers? What have you learned from your work in the past that you want to bring forward if it hasn't been working? And what do you want to be different? And so that's one thing. We do a whole series of exercises around understanding priorities. So you have a sort of a guiding North Star. Another thing I do with people, and this is sort of a corny question, but it really works, and it really works much better when you're being facilitated by a coach, is the magic wand question. So if I could wave a magic wand and you could do anything, what would that be? And the reason why I say this works better when it's being facilitated is sometimes people have asked themselves that question, they've tormented themselves with that question, but I can help guide them through and tease it out.
I love that question. Let's stay there for a second. With the magic wand question, Do you find that people stay within a box of what they know or what they think their resources are, or do they really stretch outside into that, oh, I wish I could be this, even though I don't know how I'm going to get there. I really want to do this. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. And sometimes I have to, depending on the person's mindset and where they come from and their cultural background, their family background, they immediately get practical too fast.
Right.
And really, part of this process in the kind of early visioning phase, and when I use that visioning, I just want to have a disclaimer that I'm an accountant's daughter, so I'm very practical. And visioning is a really pragmatic tool, as is understanding passion. And so sometimes I don't want them to get too ahead into practical. Let's just see if it's something that ignites their passion, because that's going to be the fuel to help them get moving.
That's excellent. And then once they sort of discover their magic wand or go over their priorities and have somewhat of a direction, what do you recommend then? How can they even further that?
Yeah, and again, it's a fluid process. And what I mean by that is just in the example that I gave earlier of this person who had came in with an idea, and then when she started taking steps to test the idea, she saw that it wasn't going to work. That sometimes we explore different ideas, and the idea of testing. Okay, so what are the first steps you can take to see if this thing is going to work? Who can you talk to? How can you understand the marketplace? How can you understand your assets? Will you be competitive? Are your skills transferable? It just, it depends on, again, if it's starting a business, looking for a new job in a different sector, or really, as I did, rechanging completely.
Wendy, in the testing phase, this is interesting because testing it out gives you a feel of what you can or can't achieve. Now, what happens if someone is testing, but they share their big idea of the direction that they're going through or going on with other people around them? Maybe it's family members, maybe it's well meaning friends, and they get a little pushback. Have you ever had a situation where someone comes to you with, I'm getting a lot of negative external feedback? What do I do? What would you say to them?
Well, I'm going to start answering that question with my own experience of when I decided to become a coach and go back to school at 60. I didn't tell any of my close friends or family members about it until while I was in the exploration phase, because I didn't want anyone to dissuade me. And so it wasn't until I was just on the threshold of making the investment to go back to school that I shared it with two friends. One of them said, "Fantastic idea. I can't believe you didn't think of it earlier." And the other one was much more cautious. So I sometimes, and now it's good to test the idea, but sometimes family members have too much skin in the game and they're not always the best test cases.
You make it.
I love this process of reinvention. We've all been there. We've all needed it. Now stick with us. So after the break, she's going to walk us through how to find that aha moment that we are all looking for. Stick with us.